Okay, can you hear me okay, Carly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Let's get started. So thank you. Thank you for joining our webinar today, 7 reasons why automation is a best practice for SAP changes. And today we're going to go through a little bit about who REALTECH is as a company, and then we'll dive right into why we believe 7 reasons why automation is the best practice for SAP changes. And we've came up with this list from our experience over the last 25 years with our SAP change and transport solution, which specifically focuses on automation approvals and auditing of SAP changes. Then we'll dive in and tell you a little bit about our Smart Change solution and show you a quick demo of how it works, basically an end-to-end automated process from release of your development system into the QA system and into production. And of course, there's workflow approvals along the way. And then we have some technical checks. So really, if you're doing changes today via standard STMS or just manually, with STMS, but also with spreadsheets or SharePoint sites, well, REALTECH can really automate that process from end to end, eliminating the use of the spreadsheets or the emails, approval steps, things like that with our solution. And then we'll open it up for Q&A and give you our contact information should you want to learn more. We're having webinars on a monthly basis, really focused on helping customers get rid of their manual processes and automate with our solutions. So like I mentioned, Smart Change has one component for transport management, but we have another retrofitting tool. We have a ITSM tool. So REALTECH has been in the market building specific SAP solutions since 1994. So reason number 1 why we believe you should automate this process is it really eliminates the manual process gaps, and all teams really perform changes in a different way. So what we mean by this is when we go in and do our projects, what we're seeing is that you might have an ECC team that has one process for SAP changes, but then the BW team does it completely different, right? And with our solution, we basically take those steps and we make sure that everybody's doing it the same across the board, right? So I go by the methodology. If one person is doing it wrong, doing the process wrong, then everybody's doing the process wrong, right? So what we really do is when we come in, when you're doing a manual process, steps can be missed, right? And manual processes rely on multiple applications, email, SharePoint sites, approvals outside of SAP, such as ServiceNow or BMC Remedy, and there's just multiple applications, and it's chaos, right? When you're doing a manual process, audits become more complex and time consuming, right? So you might have a basis guy going in and pulling in all your logs, your transport logs, all the information about how that transport got moved into dev quality production. But maybe your developer is now going to find his emails on who approved it to get in there, right? To prove that he didn't approve it into quality and also approve it into production, right? So there's a lot of resource time. There's a lot of digging into the system. And basically, with our solution, you can create the workflows that match your manual processes that you have today and streamline this to eliminate, I call it careless mistakes, right? It's time that you're investing into all these different developers, testers, approvers, and basis when you can have one solution that really does all that for you. And from one central system that's configured to all your environments. The second reason is with a manual process, there is no technical proactive checking, right? So you may be releasing, or a developer may release a transport 4 or 5 times before they actually get the sixth one right before it goes into the system, and then onto product, and then it goes into production, right? There's really no overtaker detection in a manual process. You can't release it and automatically import into QA into production. There is the QA workflow in standard SAP that you can push it in automatically, but in production, you always need basis, right? And basis could be working on a production problem, but they got to stop what they're doing and push a transport in. Critical object checking. With a manual process, you may have critical objects that you don't want to move through your environment, and you want to set it to a warning or an error, but you have no capability of doing that. So this critical object is moving through quality, moving into production, and could cause a production down scenario, right? Dependency checking, right? Predecessor, successor, companion relationship. That's all done via spreadsheets, right? So a developer will send, he might have 10 transports that has to go into the system. He'll send one spreadsheet in the order that he wants those transports to go in. Well, it's up to basis to really follow that order and push them into the system. But let's say they don't do it. They don't do it that way, and they miss something, right? With a tool like ours, the solution allows you to create these dependencies, manage the proactive technical checks along the way, collisions, overtaker, critical objects, and you can set them to warnings or errors as they're moving through the system. And I'll show you that during the demonstration. We'll do a quick proactive technical check. We'll approve a version 2 of a change ahead of a version 1 and see how the tool reacts throughout that process. So really, number 2 is there is no technical checking within your SAP environment when you're doing something manually, right? You need a tool or a solution that will automatically be doing this when the transport is released, checking the objects into their, let's say, dashboard or their system. And then when it goes into the system ahead of time, when someone makes an approval, they'll be able to tell if they're having an overtaker or collision detection problem. So reason number 3, and we just had a great demonstration with a partner of ours called WorkSoft for a client where they have WorkSoft, they have our tool that we're really going to automate from the time they release the transport. Once it goes into quality with our solution, we're going to trigger an API up to WorkSoft so they can do their automated testing. And then once the automated testing is complete, and if it's successful or not successful, it's going to make an approval in our tool. So we can automate that process from release, also into quality, then also the testing. And then when it finally gets to its final approval in the production, all it needs is a sign off by that approver or the change approval board, and everything else is taken care of in an automated sequence, right? So we speed up the testing process, right? So with the manual process, tester must be notified, developer releases it, basis puts it in, basis then notifies the developer then sends an email to the tester, right? Or basis sends an email to the tester, right? So that's all additional steps that could be eliminated with an automated process. After the tester completes the testing, they have to send another email back to developer notifying of the results, right? And then go attach their document, their testing document somewhere, either in a ServiceNow or in some kind of SharePoint site, somewhere that when an auditor comes in and they have to find this information, they can find it quickly and easy to let them know that it was testing successfully before it went into production. So basically the bottom line on reason number 3 is with our solution, developer releases it, it'll be automatically imported. We can automatically notify the tester that it's in QA and ready for testing. Once in QA, the tester then can come back into our solution and attach the testing successful document to our solution, and it'll trigger emails to the final approvers, I apologize, inside of our smart change tool. So reason number 3, we can really automate and speed up the way the transport gets into the system. And then if you have an automated testing tool, WorkSoft, Tricentis, or even if you're doing it manually, all that stuff paperwork and all the stuff along the way would be tracked inside of our solution. So again, it's a central dashboard where you can hold your testing documents, all the approval workflows are done, all the emails are sent to the right people at the right time. And then of course, when it's got to be imported into the production system, it's imported, and we can even send an email back to validate that it's inside production before the, let's say, the support request or service request is closed. So with that, reason number 4, right? We help audits be more efficient. I talked a little bit about it. With a manual process, audits become labor intensive. Basis has to look through the logs. Basically, you could miss some data in SAP for the audit, right? So approval emails could be deleted or misplaced. Developers could approve their own into QA or prod. It could be just a simple email that gets sent that says move it into the system, and the developer doesn't specify which system. Basis takes that, and unfortunately they're doing something else. They don't, it's a quick task, right? Oh, I'll just go push it in. Well, that's an absolute auditing no-no, right? You're not supposed to be able to release, approve into QA and approve into production, right? With us, it's a couple clicks of a button within our central dashboard. You can create a report that tracks the action log, the import history, any additional attributes. And what that is for us, it could be an attachment, it could be a text, was testing successful, yes or no. And then it has all the approval steps and workflow that's built into the report, right? So really within 2 minutes or 3 minutes, you have a report of exactly what happened with that change from when it was released from dev into QA and into prod, and you export it out and give it to your auditor, right? It's that simple. A quick story, we just did a project for a customer, and they had a complete manual process. I mean, so manual that they had a piece of paper that had 5 different signatures on it that someone would have to walk around to the manager's office and get their hand signature to put it inside a bin outside of Basis, right? Well, their approval or auditing process was a nightmare, right? Because now they got to go into this cabinet, pull out all these pieces of paper that have all these approval steps, and now they have to go into SAP and track all that information along with the paper. We eliminate all that, right? It's just one central stop for complete transparency and visibility of all your changes, of all your systems, and also has the workflow built into the solution, along with ad hoc reporting, or we have predefined reports. You click it and you can export it out. So it really streamlines that process. So reason number 5, right? Integration with automation eliminates errors, right? We have a customer, Air Products, who they have a really slick ServiceNow to Smart Change integration. And basically what they do there is they make their approvals in ServiceNow. And with web service calls into our tool, it approves inside of our tool and moves all those changes and then reports all the information back up to ServiceNow. So ServiceNow can be the business tool, or Jira can be the business tool, or Remedy, where you open all your tickets. Maybe you have in those systems a category for SAP because it's an SAP incident or change. And then you're really able to create a transport, assign that ticket number to that transport within SAP. And then when it goes into our solution along the way, you can report on that, right? So maybe you have an incident, INC 12345. You have 10 transports assigned to that incident. You can go into our solution and do a search for incident 12345, see all those transports that are related to that change. And then when you approve on the top level, I call it the parent versus the child relationship. The parent tool like ServiceNow, it will approve all those transports and move it into the system in the correct order. So yeah, with our solution, we can automate the technical side, but also with our solution, we can integrate into outside tools, just like Worksoft I mentioned, or ServiceNow, and you really have one tool. It looks like one tool, but it's two applications that are integrated together for a complete automated process from beginning to end, right? So I talked a little bit about it, but you could, let's just go through a scenario where you release the transport, you assign a ticket number on the release, then it gets automated into quality. We then contact Worksoft. Worksoft then lets us know it's been tested successfully. And really all you need is an approval into production, right? So we could even report those Worksoft results back up to ServiceNow. And then ServiceNow, when it's change approval board, just approves the ServiceNow ticket number for production, and then it moves into the system. So we can eliminate a lot of manual steps that you're doing today. I know this process is being done without automation, but with today's change of the times, and you really want to automate this process from the beginning to end, so that way you're eliminating gaps in your process or errors that could happen inside of SAP, especially in your production system. With automation, you know it's going to work every time because it's doing the same process every time, and it fits right into the DevOps methodology of making changes faster and being more agile in your SAP environments. So reason number 6, dependency checking with transports, right? So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. You might have a spreadsheet where the developer lists the dependencies they wanted to go into the system. With our solution, we have something called return code forecasting. And with return code forecasting, it's a feature that you can check ahead of time that the transport has the object dependencies within that it will need before it goes into the system to ensure a successful return code. I can show you a little bit about this during the demonstration, but basically it's another proactive technical check that no other company or no other vendor has, even SAP, that you're able to determine a successful return code ahead of time before it goes into the system. So, and also a big one is basically dependencies are a common issue why transports fail, right? If you have a predecessor successor relationship and you want them to go into the system a certain way for them to have a successful return code, and they don't go in that way, or they're not followed that way, you know, they could cause transports to fail. With our solution, developers can actually make those dependencies ahead of time, and it'll follow that structure into QA and into production when it gets imported into the systems. And basically the last reason, and I'm a former basis guy, so this is a selfish reason, right, to me, but we completely take basis away from this process and they can focus on more important tasks, right? So with a manual process, basis has to check their email constantly to import the transports. They have to ensure it went in and it didn't fail, and if it did, email back the developer with the results. They have to ensure STMS technically is working all the time without issues. And they should be focused on more important tasks, right? So they should be focused on optimizing HANA to make sure that it's producing the results that it should on your new SAP HANA systems, right? With our solution, we roll out the onus of doing SAP changes and transports to the people that are doing them, the developers, the approvers, the change approval board, the release managers, the transport coordinators. Those folks who live this daily should really be the ones involved in the process. Basis shouldn't have to stop what they're doing to push a transport into the system, right? With us, we have automated jobs that take that away, take them away from doing that, and it's just automated all the way through. So I mentioned our solution. What is it, right? So it's called Smart Change. There's a module of Smart Change called Transport Management. Independent of SAP Releaser systems, so NetWeaver 7.0 or above. We do have customers running 7.0 or below, but today's more likely customers are 7.3 and above with their systems. Flexible approval workflows. So you can have one approval workflow for your MM team that has 2 approvals, into production. And then you can have a FICO project within our tool that has 3 approvals to get into production. So we have a concept of what we call REALTECH project and destinations, and that's really analogous to the workflows and how we set them up, and they're freely nameable, right? And then the destination is analogous to the transport route, how it goes into the systems and what systems and clients it goes into. So with the concept of a project destination combination, that's what the developer releases into. I'll show you this during the demo, and that's where it inherits its approval steps, its attributes, and it's static all along into quality and into production. So the developer really determines where the transport goes to, who approves for it, and they do that on the release step, and I'll show you that. So out of the box reporting, super easy to install and configure, right? We're not out of the box package solution, right? So it doesn't take months to implement our software. Literally, it's days and weeks. We install the transports into your 000 client, create an RFC and a user, do some configuration on the landscape, and within 3 to 5 days, you're using our software. Very simple. So scalable or complex, scalable for simple or complex environments. So we have some customers who have 2 landscapes. Then we have Microsoft who has 79 systems using our software to control their complete SAP change and transport management. So Microsoft's one of our largest clients, along with Kimberly-Clark. They have 40 landscapes using our software. And then small, medium, or large, right? I mentioned 2, I mentioned 40, but we can help you either a small, medium, or large customer with our software. We have we custom built, and we're the only company who has this. Customers were using Charm, and then they didn't like it, too rigid, too hard, right? What we built is an extractor. We call it the ready to run extractor, where we can go in and pull any data from Solution Manager for solution documentation, for Charm. We can export that data with our interface management tool that's been around for 20 years. And we can interface to our tool to basically do a seamless transition to pull the open and close change requests out of Charm, and then have you start using our tool really quick, because we're pulling that data out. We're going to put the transports in our tool along with the open and close change requests, and then you're using our solution on a Monday after switching over from a Friday. That's how easy it is. And I mentioned third-party integration. Right? We integrate. We have an integration framework that comes out of the box with our tool, and it's really configuration, not customization, when you want to integrate to something outside of SAP, which makes it super easy. So this is just some of the features as well. The return code forecasting, we can bundle transports for small projects, dependencies, cross-system object locking. We're really tracking information down to the object level. So we're not just a transport tool. You can go in and see what transport has what objects, how many times it's been imported into the system, and what other transports that object is in within our tool. So what I'll do now is I'll just show you a quick end-to-end demonstration of how the tool works. And Carly, you can see my SAP screen, right? I think you guys can see the screen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a transport inside of SAP. Oops. And this doesn't have any objects in it, but I'll just call it a webinar TR 12. When I go ahead and create or save that, nothing happens. But when I go ahead and release the task, nothing happens. But when I go ahead and release the transport request, having a locking scenario, so bear with me 1 second. Stop it. Stop sharing. Just give me 1 second. If there's any questions that I can answer while I'm doing this, please feel free to just unmute yourself and I'd be happy to answer them before we show you the demo. One second. Got it. Okay, so share my screen. Okay, so let's display. I have that transport number. Going to release it. Okay, perfect. So when I release the transport, I'm hoping everyone can see my screen.
I can't see your screen right now.
Okay. Bear with me one sec.
There you go.
Okay, so you see the SAP screen, Carly?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so sorry about that. When I go ahead and release the transport request, the first thing that pops up, and this is something we've done for another customer, is you're able to track information about that request, right? So maybe there's a ServiceNow ticket number or a Jira ticket number, or you just wanted to classify it as some kind of subtype, right? Maybe it's a new configuration, right? And it's a incident. So this is something we've done for another customer. It's not the standard out-of-box pop-up, but what you could also do is make this mandatory, so the developers have to fill this out when they release their transport. Now, this is the standard pop-up that comes up within our tool, right? So I mentioned projects and destinations, right? So a project destination combination to us is what, when a developer selects that, that's what the transport inherits on its way into our tool, right? So it inherits the approval steps and inherits what systems the transport's going to go into, right? And you can say in my production system, I actually have it going into my dual development system, my D2 system, and then maybe circling back into quality, maybe because I wanted to do a copy back or something into a different client for a customization request. So for us, all a developer really needs to know is what project destination combination to release into, and then it inherits the rest of the steps along the way. So here I'm going to release the transport into my basis project destination, and then standard SAP takes over and releases the transport. On the same system, which is I have on this EDV system, I have my controller. So we have our own transaction, and here an email has been sent because I need an approval into quality. We can bypass that in our tool and send transports right to what we call the current status, and it'll be imported into quality. But for demo purposes, I have a approval step inside of my tool. And if I double click on the request, I get more information. All the attributes that I filled out are now pulled into the tool, right? If there was an attachment, I could attach something as well. I could go see the object list of what's in the transport, but I also see the approval steps, right? So in this example, I just need a single approval, a technical approval to get into quality. And I'm going to go ahead and make that. Everything's tracked and logged. You'll see my name across the board, but we have segregation of duties with our authorization object. You can control who does what, when, and where throughout the solution. But when it gets to production, this one I'm going to need a release manager, a basis approval, and then my change approval board. So now it's sitting at current, waiting to be imported into my quality system. In this example, I won't wait for the job. I'll go ahead and push it in. This is what we call the system queue. This is what basis would use to push it in. We never stop you from doing transports ever. We don't rip out or replace anything you have today. We're just a bolt-on inside of SAP. So here I've imported into my quality system. It sent an email letting me know that it had return code 0, all the information about that request. And now it's in QA waiting to be tested, right? So an automatic job would switch it down to this queue status, and it'll just sit here, right? It's sitting here waiting for the testing to be completed, waiting for the developer or the tester to come in and say it's ready for its final approvals. And then when it's ready for its final approvals, someone will push it down from queue to signature. And what it does is trigger an email to this release manager. Now I'm able to do the next step. So it didn't trigger an email. That's sort of a rule within our solution. If you can do the next step, don't send the email. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and approve it as a release manager. It then triggers an email to the basis user group. I'm now basis making the approval. System. What's going on with my system? System's slow today. From Germany. Oh, it's trying to copy the data in the co file. That's what it's doing down the bottom. Okay, so it's having an issue in my production system. So what we do is we try to copy the data in the co files when we make an approval. And here it's telling me that I can't copy the data in the co file over to my RD2 system because I have it down in my Amazon system. Okay, so, but basically it would make the approval. Yeah, I got it. It would make the approval all the way through with my name there, drop to current, and then it would be imported into the production system. Here I have a bunch of transports that you can see have moved. This one, this is what it would look like if it went all the way through. You can see, you can track date and time when it went into the system, and also go look at if there was any logs related to the imports into the system. So that's just a real simple, no object. The transport is being released, it's going into quality, it's going into production. The one thing I wanted to show is the technical checks, right? When there's a problem within a transport. I'm just trying to find this one. Where's 31? Okay, so let's look at this one. This one. So I'm going to move them down to the signature step. When I go ahead, I'm going to approve 137 ahead of 135. Basically, I know that 35 was released first and 37 is my version 2 of that object. When I go ahead and make the approval step, here I have what we call a collision check or an overtaker detection. So there's a problem if I move this into the system, right? This one was released 6 days before that this one was released, a different date and time, but they have objects that are the same or partial objects. They have this function group in both the transports. So if I were trying to actually push this through, I would overwrite something, right? You'd have to do more work or go back to the developer and it would overwrite this function group and the developer would have to redo his work again, release another transport that goes through quality and production. With our solution, we tell you ahead of time before it goes into the system. We're also checking for dependencies, as I mentioned, any special aspects like application data that's being moved or extras that are being moved through your environment, and then also critical objects if they were moving through the environment. And so that's just an example of how an overtaker or our proactive technical checks happen on the signature step before it goes into the system. The one table I would like to show is in our quality assurance tab is where we keep track of all the critical objects. Now, in this example, on my demo system, I only have, if someone is moving through my namespace, the REALTECH namespace, any of the tables, if they're moving through the environment, I have it set to a warning to let me know that, hey, this is moving through this environment, you know. But you could also set it to an error where it stops the transport from going into the system. Let's see something here. And on the reporting, and I think I'll show that last, the reporting, I'm able at any time to look at a transport and run a quick report and get all the information that's happened with that change, you know, the action log from beginning all the way when it moved and who approved it into production, the import history, date and time when it was released into the system or imported into the system, the return codes, any notes that are attached or SAP attributes here, or even what we call TM attributes. That would be where we'd see the ServiceNow ticket number or BMC ticket number, or any attachments or links to outside applications. And then you could also send it to somebody or export it out for auditing. So super simple from an auditing standpoint, all from one central location, our dashboard. And the one of the things we get in our feedback from our customers, sorry, I've been talking all day, is that this looks like SAP, right? It's very easy to train your users using our software because it looks like SAP, right? Literally, it's a 1-hour training session to get your users trained on this process, because it's your same process. We're just taking your process, automating it, and eliminating steps, and just making it easier to use our application. So with that, I'll go back and open it up. If there's any questions that you may have, please feel free to ask. I don't know if it's muted, Carly, or you have to unmute them or something.
We don't have any questions currently, Dave.
Okay, great. So there's a couple success stories I just wanted to finish off with. We're German. We originated in Germany, in Waldorf, right around around the block from SAP. So we have over 200 customers using our software. This TUA AG is one of our clients. We have many success stories, white papers, brochures we can send to you after the presentation. And of course, I mentioned Microsoft. They've been using our software for about 8 years now, and it controls their complete SAP change and transport process with our Smart Change suite of products, which is transport management, change process management, and synchronization management. So with that, here is my contact information. We'll be reaching back out to you. Thank you for attending the webinar, and I know spending time with us today. Again, we encourage you to visit our website, or we have YouTubes out there that show demos of our software, integrations of our software. But we would love to talk to you more about how we can help your company automate your processes today with our solution. So really appreciate this, and we'll be reaching out soon. So thanks for attending, and have a great day. Thank you.